This video is brought to you by friend of the channel Squarespace. Stick around to learn more about them, as well as a special offer they're making available through my channel. Gamers! First of all, thank you for tuning in to the new podcast, Friends Per Second. The team and I have been overwhelmed by the response, truly more than we could have anticipated, so big thanks for that. You guys are super cool. We do that show every 2 weeks, both here on this channel and on podcast platforms. Link below the like button. Thank you again. Love you. Anyway, with that out the way, welcome back to our regularly scheduled This Week in Video Game programming. With all the excitement of Key 3 now behind us, we can settle back into a more familiar groove of news and announcements and reviews and dunking on Battlefield 2042. I always love that. In the past, E3 was this sort of atom bomb of news and reveals, all of it wildly exploding in a great mushroom cloud of fake trailers and hype, and leaving behind a barren wasteland completely devoid of any news or announcements. Not so this year, as the sundering of E3 has spread its contents across a wider span of time. I swear to God, last week felt like it had almost as many reveals as the week before, what with Capcom and Square doing their thing, and we haven't yet heard from the likes of Ubisoft, Nintendo, and a bunch of other major players. Point is, the news keeps coming, and so we'll keep talking about it. So, let's get to it. While we're on the topic of E3, we should talk about the brewing conflict between Summer Games Fest and Games Awards organizer Jeff Keighley and Lootbox Lobby Group and E3 organizer the ESA. This year, E3 was cancelled under ambiguous circumstances. They claimed it was due to Omicron, but there were also reports that they made that call before Omicron even existed, so it's a little sus. Point is, E3 didn't happen, so Jeff Keighley stepped in to fill the void, hosting both the Summer Games Fest showcase and Play Days, which was a hands-on event for mainly media. Just as all this was happening, the ESA issued a statement being like, oh hey, we're still here, E3's still happening next year, we promise. Speaking to the Washington Post, ESA President Stan Pierre-Louis said, quote, "We're excited about coming back in 2023 with both a digital and an in-person event. As much as we love these digital events, and as much as they reach people and we want that global reach, we also know there's a really strong desire for people to convene, to be able to connect in person and see each other and talk about what makes games great," end quote. He's not wrong, to be honest. As much as I enjoyed Key 3, it wasn't a shadow of what E3 was. Even more recent E3s, which has certainly downsized a lot in terms of what was on show. I've always loved E3, and I'm glad to know there's a commitment to keeping it alive. What makes this really interesting is that Jeff Keighley has announced that the Summer Games Fest will also be an in-person event next year, implying that it's going to invite in more people than the handful of journalists that got an invite this year. This means that the ESA and Jeff are going to be in a fierce bidding war, competing for exclusive access to hands-on opportunities and world premiere announcements. That's 2 E3s running, probably at the same time. 2 times the Todd. I can never get enough of that jacket, so I'm all for it. Speaking of the Todd, this week he dropped a low-key bombshell. Fallout 5 is coming, and it should be out at around about the same time that the Earth is an actual post-apocalyptic wasteland. Speaking to IGN about Bethesda's plans post-Starfield, Todd said, quote, "Yes, Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production, and, you know, we're going to be doing Fallout 5 after that, so our slate's pretty full going forward for a while. We have some other projects that we look at from time to time as well," end quote. Now, to be clear, Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production, meaning that it won't hit full production for a while yet, and then that will take years, since Bethesda are famously slow at developing their games. I mean, the team works at 25 FPS, so, you know, it does make things harder. I reckon it's a good guess to suggest that Elder Scrolls 6 won't be in our hands until 2026 at the earliest, which means that Fallout 5 isn't arriving anytime before 2030 if we're lucky. Now do you get my post-apocalyptic wasteland joke? In all seriousness, I think this announcement from Todd is kind of silly. I mean, firstly, that's a big thing to lock your studio into that far away. A lot can change between now and then, and if Bethesda choose to pivot to something else, then that's going to disappoint a lot of people. Secondly, why does Bethesda need to make the next Fallout game? It's not like they haven't outsourced the IP before. New Vegas is the most beloved of all the Fallouts, and Obsidian made that. Bethesda is now the property of Microsoft, meaning that they've joined a huge network of well-resourced studios. Someone else could make a Fallout game while Bethesda makes Elder Scrolls 6. That makes sense, right? I'd be okay with that. Anything that can be done to increase the chances that I'm still alive by the time Fallout 5 hits, I'm in support of that. However Fallout 5 gets made, let's hope the development process is a hell of a lot better than that of Fallout 76's. Last week, a report from Kotaku's Sissy Jiang spelled out the human cost of Fallout 76's disastrous launch, which tracks back deep into the early phases of Fallout 76's development. They spoke to 10 former Bethesda employees who were close to Fallout 76, and there weren't many nice things to be said about how that game was made. It turns out that a bunch of senior Bethesda talent wanted absolutely nothing to do with the project, and those that did get drafted in would soon leave owing to the horrible working conditions. Quote, some sources noted that the project drove an exodus of senior developers who had worked on some of Bethesda's most prolific titles, end quote. Todd Howard was also apparently quite disinterested in the project, and this is the best. Quote, according to one source, Howard was supposed to be in charge of the game, but he spent most of his time working on Starfield, which reportedly started development after Fallout 4 shipped in 2015. One source told Kotaku that his subordinates would call it seagulling, where he would fly by later and shit all over an idea that had popular traction within the design team, end quote. Todd the Seagull. You better believe I'm coming back to that one. Sadly, the story of crunch ends up exactly where you'd expect, on the shoulders of overworked, underpaid QA staff, many of whom were forced to work unconscionable hours only to have their feedback ignored by a management team unwilling to delay a clearly broken game because they wanted the cash now rather than later. It's a tale as old as time, and sadly, it's doomed to repeat again and again. Hey, let's check in on Diablo Immortal. It's been a few weeks since launch now. I'm still playing little bits of it because I feel like I should review it, but the more I play of it and the more I read about it, I just have come to loathe this, and so I'm really struggling to log on, that's the honest truth. Not everyone shares that sentiment. Some people are playing it and loving it and spending money on it. We don't have official data from Blizzard yet, but market intelligence tool AppMagic estimates that Diablo Immortal has already generated some $24 million for Activision Blizzard. Now that sounds like a lot, right? Well, sort of. If it's right, that equates to roughly $12 million a week in its launch window. Compare that to, say, Genshin Impact, which made $60 million in its first week alone, and $1 billion in its first 6 months. Those are surely the numbers that Blizzard's greedy executives salivated over when they spun up this reskinned casino. So seeing only $24 million for this first period is, I think, cause for optimism. Another baseline to consider is this. When Diablo 3 launched, it made $210 million in its first day, and around $1 billion in its first year. People counter with the argument that mobile is about the long game, so it's not a fair comparison. Well, good game development is also about the long game. Well, you think games stop selling copies after week 1? Diablo 3 went on to sell 30 million copies, and the work Blizzard put into that game strengthened the franchise. We all disliked Diablo 3 at the beginning, but it became a much-loved game after Blizzard took out that real money auction house and kind of rebooted the game with Reaper of Souls. Point is, your brand matters. So yeah, Diablo Immortal is going to make some money off whales. Probably a lot of money. But it did so at the expense of the brand that Blizzard has spent decades building, so I hope that $24 million was worth it. Oh, and by the way, can I just say, it's not necessary to give Blizzard $20,000 to prove that this game is a scam. Streamers, you don't need to do this. There is an app that someone has made that models the probability of getting 5-star legendary gems. You can just stream yourself clicking that button a bunch of times. It proves the same point without having to give Blizzard exactly what they want. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. While we're on the topic of Activision Blizzard, turns out that all that sexual harassment stuff they were accused of was nonsense, and they did absolutely nothing wrong. That's according to Activision Blizzard. This week, they embodied that Obama medal meme when a working group appointed by their board of directors reported back their findings of an internal investigation and found, quote, contrary to many of the allegations, the board and its external advisors have determined that there is no evidence to suggest that Activision Blizzard senior executives ever intentionally ignored or attempted to downplay the instances of gender harassment that occurred and were reported, end quote. Huh, funny. I seem to recall dozens and dozens of Activision Blizzard employees personally recounting stories of workplace harassment, bullying, and executive indifference. I guess I just imagined all that. Silly me. It's an unsurprising finding given the fact that the board appointed these lackeys themselves. That'd be like appointing Garfield to solve the mystery of who ate the lasagna. It's pantomime to position for shareholder lawsuits and should be met with the same laughter we reserve for any clown show. Soon, Bobby Kotick and his cadre of crooks will hand the keys over to Phil Spencer, and attention will turn to the future of the studios and IPs that Activision Blizzard has amassed over the years. We know already that things are changing with Call of Duty, with the commitment to an annual COD release being abandoned in favor of giving the series some breathing room. One COD developer, Infinity Ward, seems to be using that breathing room to create something new. Spotted by Charlie Intel, Infinity Ward was hiring a narrative director who would be providing, quote, the best narrative and cinematic experience in an open world RPG, end quote. Ever since I played Modern Warfare 2019, I really wanted Activision to make a different game with that engine, because that engine rules. Like, imagine an open world, military-themed RPG running on the Modern Warfare engine. Like, hell yeah, man, sign me up, that'd be sick. Of course, we don't know what this actually is, but it is nice to imagine. One last little Activision Blizzard tidbit while we're here. Overwatch 1.5 is ditching loot boxes. During the Xbox showcase, we got an official release date for the multiplayer shooter, October 4th. We also learned that it was going to go free to play, which is a big deal since a lot of people were wondering how Blizzard were going to justify the asking price for this one. In a recent live stream discussing the roadmap future of the game, Blizzard did say they were dropping loot boxes in favor of a battle pass and a straight up cash shop. I know people are mixed on battle passes, but I think they're a vastly better system than the gambling that loot boxes are based on, so I think it's an improvement. This is a big move, since Overwatch is one of the games that's credited with normalizing loot boxes in the core gaming market. Most core games have since abandoned this approach as the industry pushed back hard against what is an inherently exploitative monetization model, making Overwatch one of the last holdouts, and now it's just pretty much Apex Legends and gacha games, I think. Not for nothing, but the Overwatch 2 beta kicks in on June 28th, and you can sign up for that one right now. Hey, remember Stadia? Me either, but I looked it up, and apparently it was a cloud gaming service that Google set up a while back. I don't know, I don't remember anything about that, but if you say so. Anyway, turns out when Stadia died, it still had games in development. According to Stephen Totillo of Axios, the recently released The Quarry from Supermassive Games began its life as a Stadia exclusive, but of course found its way to other platforms when Stadia went the way of the dodo. Similarly, the recently revealed High on Life from Rick and Morty's Justin Roiland was set to be a Stadia exclusive, but it's now coming to all platforms. It does give us insight into what Stadia could have been if the tech giant had listened and arrived at a better business model, rather than charging headlong into something that no one wanted and then just shuttering all of their internal development capability less than 18 months after setting it up. KilledByGoogle.com is a website for a reason, and it's a shame that Google's arrogance doomed this product and disappointed so many people who bought in early. If local hardware is more your thing, then I've got some bad news for you. It looks as though the crippling stock shortages we're experiencing are set to continue for some time yet. Xbox CFO Tim Stewart was speaking recently about the outlook for Microsoft's console business, and he flagged that the supply chain issues everyone's facing are likely to persist right the way through 2022, including into the holiday season. That's typically a peak period for when a lot of consoles are purchased as Christmas presents, but this year it looks like little Timmy might have to settle for a Soldier Boy console, since Xbox Series consoles and PlayStation 5s are likely to be tough to find owing to the lockdowns affecting Shanghai, one of the biggest manufacturing centers in the world. If you're hankering for a console this holiday season, it might be a good idea to put a pre-order down for one because, yeah, the CFO of Xbox probably knows what he's talking about. In other hardware news, we might be getting a new PS5 controller. The report comes from Tom Anderson, who's had a pretty good run lately breaking news. If the report is accurate, we can expect Sony to unveil the new controller over the coming weeks. It's called Project Hunt right now, and it'll have, quote, several interesting features including analog sticks, trigger stops, and rear buttons, flappy paddles, end quote. Interestingly, the article also suggests that the analog stick componentry can be removed and replaced. So if you ever got stick drift, you could buy a new analog stick. It would be nice if we didn't have to worry about that at all, but hey, at least that's better than having to fork out for an entirely new controller. If this report is accurate, the controller variant is likely to be analogous to the Xbox Elite controller, which is not cheap. That thing is $200 or something ridiculous, so if you're keen on this, then you better start chatting to your bank about like a personal loan or a second mortgage or, I don't know, a loan shark. Yeah, that'd probably be best actually. And then if you don't pay him back, you'd be like, hey, can't play PlayStation if I break your thumbs. I'm getting carried away, let's move on. Speaking of PlayStation, how about that God of War delay, eh? Recently, Game Reactor put out an article where they say they got confirmation that the game was being delayed into 2023. This put everyone into a bit of a tears, so Jason Schreier had to be all like, alright, settle down everyone, let me take a look. He spoke to 3 sources close to the title, and all 3 confirmed that the game would ship this year, most likely in November. We can probably expect to have that release date confirmed sometime in the next month. No disrespect to Game Reactor, but I'm going to take Jason's word on this one, and I look forward to some serious boy action in November. Wait, that came out wrong. As I said at the start of this episode, we got plenty of chunky showcases this week, so what say we take a look at them now, eh? First up, we had Capcom. They've been on an absolute tear this past few years, successfully breathing life back into both Resident Evil and Devil May Cry, and taking Monster Hunter from being something only the Japanese market was obsessed with to being a Mr. Worldwide phenomenon. Capcom show absolutely no signs of slowing down across any of those franchises. This week, Capcom showed off another trailer for the upcoming Monster Hunter Rise expansion. There's actually a demo for that out right now for both Switch and PC, so you can check that out if you can. Capcom are quadrupling down on Resident Evil with a whole slew of announcements for tons of titles. First up, you can now get your hands on the next-gen version of Resident Evil 7, 2 Remake, and 3 Remake. Those are available right now for both PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. There's new campaign DLC coming for Resident Evil Village. This one follows the story of Ethan Winters' daughter, and can I just say that it's a miracle that a man as dumb as Ethan Winters managed to successfully procreate. Don't need fingers for that one, I guess. Hey! Anyway, in addition to that DLC, the core game is also getting some updates, most notably a third-person mode, which is going to make a lot of people very happy, since more than a few people hate the first-person perspective of the recent Resident Evil games. Most exciting of all, the Mercenaries game mode is getting new content, including new playable characters. You'll be able to play as Chris Redfield, as the Hammer Bro Heisenberg, and as the big woman herself, Lady Dimitrescu. Finally, you'll be able to crush zombies under your healed foot, and I can only imagine what the not safe for work modders are going to do with this game mode. Oh, and Resident Evil Reverse still exists, and it's coming out on October 28th, like 2 years after its promised release date, and still absolutely nobody cares. Capcom showed off some more gameplay for Exoprimal, the upcoming shooter where dinosaurs rain from the sky. Let's take a look.
I call your attention to the unstoppable raptor horde. Calculating chance of employee retention. Chance calculated at 8.7%.
Capcom did confirm that this is a full-priced video game, not free-to-play, and it's not connected to Dino Crisis, despite the fact that one of the characters has more than a passing resemblance to Regina. No release date for this one yet. Capcom saved their biggest announcement for a separate showcase held a few days later. Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming. I'm going to be real with you, I have not played the first one. I see the excitement about this announcement, and I really wish I was there with you because people are absolutely losing their shit over this, but I just never played it, so I'm going to have to go back and do that. We don't know much about this new title except that it's in full production at the moment, and it's being made in Capcom's impressive RE engine. Unlikely we'll see a release date anytime before 2024, but I'll of course keep you posted. From the house of RE to the house of NFTs, Square Enix hosted a Final Fantasy VII 25-year anniversary celebration stream this week, and it too was stacked with announcements and reveals. For example, merch. No, but for real, Final Fantasy VII Remake is now available on Steam after long being exclusive to the Epic Games Store. It immediately shot up to the #1 spot on the platform, making it clear that people are more than happy to wait for PC games to arrive on their storefront of choice. The Final Fantasy VII Mobile Remake got a new trailer. This one's called Ever Crisis because Square Enix's naming conventions have to be the worst, most confusing shit ever, or Nomura refuses to work on a game. Those are his terms he negotiates in his contract. He's like, I want this amount of money, I want 1% of the gross, and I want to call it Crisis Countdown Evercore Remix 3.5 HD Alpha. If you think I'm joking, then Google Kingdom Hearts, and you'll know I lowballed that joke. The money shot for the showcase was the reveal of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. This is a remake of Crisis Core, the PSP exclusive title, which served as a prelude to Final Fantasy VII. This is a much beloved title, and one that fans were very excited to see resurrected. This one got a release window this coming northern winter, so sometime between December and February. Capping things off was our first proper look at Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. It wasn't a huge look, but as the trailer rolled through, it made it super clear that this is not a remake of Final Fantasy VII, but more a remix of it. That point was underscored by Nomura himself when he said in a subsequent press release that the meaning of the word remake as it's used in the first game isn't quite what we think it is. It has a much broader implication. Some fans were really pissed off that the ending of Final Fantasy VII Remake started messing with the original storyline, but I'm kind of okay with it. I've already experienced the original storyline, so I'm interested in a sort of multiverse-like meta-analysis spin on things, which I think is firmly on the cards. The trailer ended with a name, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and a release window, Northern Winter 2023. They also confirmed that the remake is indeed a trilogy, as that wasn't officially confirmed to this point, so that settles that then. Anyway, big year for Final Fantasy next year. Crisis Core, Final Fantasy 16, and then 7 Remake Part 2. That's pretty sweet, and as a Final Fantasy fan, I'm down. So, what else got announced or delayed this week? This is low-key interesting. Blade Runner Enhanced Edition is coming to Xbox on June 23rd. The classic adventure game from Westwood was revived a few years back for PC by Night Dive Studios and now arrives on Xbox consoles. Very unexpected, but it's great news. The studio behind the likes of This War of Mine and Frostpunk, 11-bit Studios, has announced a new narrative-led RPG. Now, to be clear, this isn't being developed by that studio itself. They're actually publishing it, while the dev work is being done by a newly formed Polish studio whose roster includes a number of CD Projekt Red veterans. This title is currently known as Project Vitriol, and it's promising to be a deep, morally ambiguous narrative RPG. We'll get an official reveal for this one sometime in Northern Summer. There's some sort of Assassin's Creed anniversary celebration going on right now, but to be honest, it's kind of hard to keep up with since it seems to be this random smattering of live streams and announcements and whatever. One thing we do know is that AC Valhalla is getting a new free game mode. It's called The Forgotten Saga, and it's essentially a roguelike where you die over and over again as you work towards some sort of goal within Asgard. I always like the Odin stuff the most in Valhalla, so hopefully this provides a few free hours of fun for those with appetite enough for more Valhalla. SIGNALIS is a game I'm going to be talking about a hell of a lot more in my upcoming Steam Next Fest video because it totally rules, but for now just let me say it got a release date October 27th. Please wishlist this one. Just trust me, just do it, okay? Evil West is like Devil May Cry with cowboys, and it's absolutely turning heads whenever they put out a new trailer for it. We got one such trailer a few days ago, and yep, it rules. This also came with confirmation of the release date, September 20th, which is sooner than I thought it would be, so that's awesome news. 2 delay announcements this week. The first is from Gearbox, who are quietly working away on HOMEWORLD 3. This apparently was scheduled for 2022, but to be honest, I totally forgot about that. Either way, that isn't the case any longer, as this week Gearbox put out a delayed.jpg announcing that the title would arrive first half of 2023. The only other delay was one revealed during the Xbox showcase last week, and it was for Stalker 2, which has been pushed into 2023. Now, if you haven't seen the video that the Stalker team put out, I really recommend giving it a watch. This is a Ukrainian-based studio, and their lives have been turned upside down with Russia's invasion of the country. Astoundingly, the studio is still committed to making the game, and they're relocating staff and doing everything they can to keep the project alive. Some members of the team, though, have left the studio to take up arms and defend their homeland. Just incredibly inspiring, and it really puts into perspective all of the meaningless shit we talk about every day, especially on this show, which is primarily concerned with shouting out cool indie titles and dunking on big publishers for being assholes. Anyway, I really admire this team and what they're doing, and I wish them nothing but safety and success. All the best, and we'll wait for as long as we need to. Just stay safe. So, what came out last week? Well, kicking things off is Neon White. This is one I've had on my radar for a while now since it looks super cool, and it's also published by Annapurna Interactive, who have a fantastic track record, very rarely missing. This latest offering seems to be in keeping with that tradition, as the title landed super well with both fans and critics. And when I say well, I mean really, really well. This thing is sitting at 98% overwhelmingly positive on Steam. I don't think I've seen a game debut that strongly this year, outside of the visual novel genre, which always has crazy high reviews. Anyway, critics are all about this as well, scoring it an 88 on OpenCritic. Eurogamer recommended it, saying, quote, "Neon White is one of the best games of the year and it'd be a colossal mistake not to check it out," end quote. While Well Played scored it a 9 out of 10, saying, quote, "It's a ride that's worth playing whether to appreciate its finely tuned level design, its enjoyable narrative, or that sense of accomplishment when you best a run on the first try," end quote. I'm definitely circling back to this one when I'm done with all the Steam Next Fest stuff. REDOUT 2 was another title I had firmly on my radar, but things got a little shaky in the run-up to launch. The game got a surprise delay just a few short days before it was meant to be released, and when the new release date did hit, the Switch version was delayed further, and there's still no word on exactly when that arrives. Reviews for it, though, are generally favourable, with the title sitting at 76% mostly positive on Steam, and critics scoring it a strong 79 on OpenCritic. Metro Games Central scored it a 7, saying, quote, "A successful tribute to F-Zero and Wipeout, where going fast never stops being fun. Its surprisingly meaty career mode more than justifies the price tag, but it may struggle to win over more casual racing enthusiasts," end quote. Casual racing enthusiasts? Isn't that like a Anyway, and finally, arguably the biggest and most wholesome release of the week takes me back, way back to my time with the NES. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge is an entirely new title, but it is absolutely loving homage to the 8 and 16-bit era in which the Turtles reigned supreme as not only pop culture icons, but as video game icons, since their games were some of the best on those platforms. This new entry was available day one on Game Pass, so a whole bunch of people got to check it out, and absolutely everyone loves it. It's sitting at 92% very positive on Steam, and critics are equally thrilled, scoring it a mighty 87 on OpenCritic. IGN scored it an 8, saying, quote, "It's fun yet simple gameplay, excellent co-op for up to 6 players online, and charming pixel-based art style will surely have 90s kids riding the wave of nostalgia all the way to its end," end quote. While Game Informer went a touch higher, scoring it at 8.8 and saying, quote, "Turtles fans new and old will find plenty to love, but those possessing a nostalgia for this era of the franchise are in for the biggest treat. Invite some friends, order a pizza, and prepare to relive your childhood in the best possible way," end quote. So what's coming out this week? Well, first up, we have a new Elder Scrolls Online expansion on the way. It's hitting existing platforms today, and it will send you to the High Isle, home of the Britons, so you can, eat baked beans or something, I don't know. Fall Guys is having a massive week. Not only is it finally arriving on Xbox and Switch, but it's also going free to play. That's a double-edged sword for those on PC, since the game is being delisted from Steam. Unless you already purchased it on Steam, you'll only be able to grab it on the Epic Games Store. But hey, it's free, so that's nice. Fall Guys has had plenty of content updates and cosmetic drops since its heady launch window, so I'm personally looking forward to diving back in to see how things have changed. The SHADOWRUN trilogy continues to be one of the best tactics-based RPGs on the market. It was exclusive to PC to this point, but as of today, it's available on consoles for a very reasonable bundle price. This definitely has strong Game Pass energy, by the way, so I do wonder if it'll end up on Microsoft's subscription service at some point. NARAKA BLADEPOINT is a martial arts-based battle royale. I've heard mixed things about it. It's not meant to be the most balanced competitive experience, but if you just want to do cool ninja shit in a competitive PvP setting, then there aren't too many games that can scratch that itch, and this is one of them. At the Xbox Showcase last week, it was revealed that this was headed to Game Pass for both PC and Xbox consoles, and it will do so on the 23rd. Sonic Origins, yet another release of the game Sega has released like 40 times already. It's hitting all platforms on the 23rd. This latest re-release is most famous for its hilariously bad pre-order matrix that held back stuff like animated menus behind pre-orders and a deluxe edition and other totally embarrassing bullshit that would be totally surprising if it wasn't par for course for how Sega treated Sonic. That isn't the only classic collection arriving this week. On the 24th, Capcom Fighting Collection arrives on all platforms. This package has 10 different Capcom fighting games in there, and only 3 of them are Street Fighter related. The other ones include stuff like Darkstalkers, Night Warriors, Vampire Savior, Red Earth, and Cyberbots, and to be honest, I had not heard of any of those before this, so this is a real time capsule, this one. Finally, a new Fire Emblem game hits on the 24th. No, it isn't that new mainline Fire Emblem game that is rumored to be sitting complete somewhere in Nintendo's vault. That's a really crazy rumor, by the way. This one is one of those Dynasty Warriors style games. Fire Emblem's Warriors 3 Hopes. But since the last one was so well received, fans are actually pretty excited for this one. Reviews for most Nintendo games typically hit 2 to 3 days before release, so we should hear more about it very soon. So this is typically the block where I do a put this on your radar shout out, but this week is a little different because this past week was the Steam Next Fest, a look at what's next from the indie development scene, and the chance to play hundreds of demos, probably thousands, I don't know. I played over 50 demos this past week, and I'm here to tell you that this was the best Steam Next Fest ever, by a country mile. There was just so much good shit here that I feel bad for Austin, who now has to edit my recap video, because there were just so many games that I want to shout out, and that video is going to be long, but worth it, trust me, because the volume of good shit on display this year was off the charts. I'm working on that video now, so I'm not going to put anything on your radar today, but in a few days, I'm going to put around 25 titles on your radar, and I promise you, none of those are filler. If you are keen for that video, then be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. It should be live in the next few days, so if you're subbed and belled, you'll get a handy little notification from me very soon. Can't wait to show you guys this stuff. It really is excellent. Sort of free stuff time now, and just 2 small things to check off. The first is that FIFA 2022 is headed to Game Pass via EA Play. That's happening this week, June 23rd to be precise. My friend sent me a quote recently, and I don't know who said it, but it goes, "FIFA is a gacha game, where instead of collecting waifus, you collect middle-aged millionaires." and I haven't been able to get that out of my head since. The only other thing to shout out isn't sort of free, but it is hella cheap. Earlier in the show, I mentioned that Capcom is crushing it at the moment, with their output over the past 5 years being truly top shelf across the board. If you would like to sample the better parts of that output for a low price, then can I interest you in the Capcom Summer Sale Bundle? For as low as around $20 US, you can get Monster Hunter World, Devil May Cry 5 and the Devil May Cry HD Collection, Street Fighter 4 and 5, Dragon's Dogma, which everyone's jumping back onto at the moment owing to the announcement of the sequel, as well as a 50% discount on Monster Hunter Rise. That is a pretty fantastic bundle, but do get in quick as it ends in like the next 24 hours after this video is live. So it'll be tight, but can you make it? Sure you can. Get it? Okay, let's move on. Our feel-good story for the week fills me with great joy. I am delighted to report that EA CEO and Handsome Jack cosplayer Andy Wilson got a pay cut. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The man on whom American Psycho would have been based if he weren't Australian took home slightly less than he did last year. And by slightly, I mean $20 million less. The pay cut comes in response to shareholders complaining that this guy was getting paid too much money. Since last pay cycle, he took home $40 million. Now that is an obscene amount of money, but do you know how rare it is for shareholders to complain about how much executives get paid? You have to be really taking the piss for shareholders, who are typically just bankers and hedge fund managers, to be like, hey man, I think you're overdoing it here. With his pay packet significantly reduced, poor old Andy will have to find a way to get by on a measly $19 million a year. That's basically nothing. How is he going to do that? He might have to cancel his Car Pass subscription. Oh, you don't know what that is? It's a service where they deliver you a new random Lamborghini once a month. It's like Game Pass, but for rich assholes. Okay, that service doesn't actually exist, but I feel like now that I've said it, someone will make it, and then like Saudi Arabia will announce they've invested $1 billion into it. That's what they're doing right now. Anyway, the point is, Andy Wilson is getting paid less money this year than he did last year. And I'd like to imagine the complaining we do around here contributed in some small part to that $20 million hole in his pocket. So you're welcome, Andy. It was my pleasure. Guys, as I was finalizing the episode, I got confirmation that I got the Rona. After 2 years of dodging it, it finally found its mark. Funnily enough, it wasn't the trip to LA that got me, but a dinner with my family a few nights ago. So yeah, 1 like equals 1 prayer for Shill Up as he sits in his basement coughing and spluttering and playing Destiny. Ew, gross. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ding the notification bell, since later this week I will try, COVID willing, to get that next Fest video out. You've been awesome as always, so thank you for sticking around, and a big thanks to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that starting a business is easy, because it's not, but I will say that at least one part of it is pretty easy, and that's starting your own website, which has never been easier thanks to Squarespace. Right now, you may have something that you want to sell. Maybe it's something you make, maybe it's a service you provide. Whatever it is, Squarespace has easy-to-use tools that let you create a website for that thing in a way that looks totally professional and can instantly get your business rolling. Like if you were selling clothes that you make or design, then Squarespace has tons of templates to choose from and customize so you can highlight your range in the best possible way. Or if you're selling a service, then Squarespace has an appointment scheduling tool so that customers can book online instantly. And that's just the front end. Squarespace has tools to help you track your inventory, manage payments, and detailed website analytics so you can see what people are doing when they get to your website and how you can make the most of that. It really is the full package, and it's so straightforward and intuitive that you don't need to have any experience in website creation. Just select from one of the dozens of professional looking templates, customize it to your own taste, and boom, you're good to go. As I mentioned earlier, Squarespace are a long-term partner of this channel, 3 years running now actually. I really appreciate that support. Squarespace are helping me turn my passion into a career, and that's what they do for a lot of people, because if you've got a passion that you want to share with the world, then a website is a great place to start. To get started, visit squarespace.com, and if you want to get serious, visit squarespace.com/skillup to get 10% off your purchase of a website or a domain name. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching it.